Mr. Chairman, you're all set. I believe our audio-visual technician is ready.
You ready?
This is the March 3rd, 2015 meeting of the Rowley Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Rowley Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under the authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Rowley's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. We are being recorded electronically this evening. We'll now call the roll for attendance. Dave DeMonaco.
Here.
Bob Garner. Here. Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Strafe.
Here.
Art Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairman, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman. I have some administrative items, if I may present to the commission this evening. I'd like to request authorization of my payroll.
Never forget that.
And I'd like to submit for your review my hours sheet up Monday. And also request authorization for mileage reimbursement for the trip down to the MACC conference in Worcester. Maybe another sheet connected with that next week. It's been a while since I did the mileage thing. I have to look up whether it needs one of those forms that needs 3 signatures and stuff.
What a surprise.
My wrist feels like that too. We go for a bulk purchase of those.
Yeah. Should have invested in roof brakes and wrist splints. Got the last bag of ice melt at Lowe's. My wife took my wallet out. Yeah, it's
You can always use that water purification.
yeah.
It's big chunks of it.
Right.
But it's good for the end of the driveway.
Is it? Yeah.
If you get a big, plow,
It's the same.
frozen thing.
It's the same chemical.
Yeah, it's all, it's all salt.
If I may, one of the sheets I handed out to the commission stapled together is the budget submittal, which actually, as we speak, is before the FinCom committee for consideration this evening, which I unfortunately had to miss their deliberations.
Well, I already reviewed this with Brent, because we had to submit it by last week. So I have no other comments other than I think I have no comments. I think Kurt, you also saw it. Right. I'm not sure anyone else has, so anyone has any comments or concerns about it, questions for Brent?
And let me just summarize for the commission that all departments were asked to submit a level funded budget. There was, though, under wages, classified as non-union, non-union employees were allowed a 1% cost of living increase and a step increase in accordance with the compensation schedules. So that's why when you look at the Form 1 page of the department's budget, you'll see represented in total a 2.5% increase. It's the combination of both the step plus the 1%, which is why it didn't work out in 1%. Yep.
Any questions, concerns? Anybody?
I just note that the cost of living is higher than the 1% that non-union members get, and they're at a disadvantage versus union members, and there's nothing that can be done about it, but I consider that unfortunate because I think that the non-union people are underpaid.
Could unionize.
Yeah. All you can do it.
The town did undertake a salary review, I believe
They
it was a
did.
year and a half ago,
Yeah.
and my salary was adjusted upward accordingly in regards to a review of what similar positioned employees
Right.
in other similar population and other criteria towns.
It was a good thing to do, but Kurt's point is well taken. Any other comments? Concerns? Anything else administrative that we need to talk about?
Well, it might be appropriate for the commission to indicate via motion their support of the submitted budget. I mean, I may have to come back to you. The budget considerations are ongoing.
Right.
I think that might be appropriate just to.
All right, I think that's probably right. So do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2016 budget as submitted?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Approved. This is the 7:45 p.m. item on the agenda. This is the legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Town of Raleigh Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw as amended, the public hearing will be held on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015 at 7:45 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex, located at 39 Central Street, to consider a stormwater management application filed by Meridian Associates on behalf of Edward J. Sotheby of HTA Realty, Inc. for proposed construction of a commercial building on an existing foundation and construction of a driveway, parking area, infiltration basin, and landscaping, all at 4 and 12 Main Street, map 15, parcel 68 and 68, lot 1, in Raleigh, Mass., owned by Edward Sotheby and HTA Realty, Inc. Who's here? You're here and you're here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm Chris Rokas with Meridian Associates,
Okay,
representing
Mr. Rokas?
Ed Sotheby.
Yep. So what would you like to tell us? That
Yeah, I can give you, want me to give a brief overview of
Yeah,
the
would you? I
project?
think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Just initially, you've seen Brent's memo?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Well, basically, what we're proposing to do, there's an existing foundation out here currently on the site. And what we're proposing is a new commercial building with 2 units, a parking lot in the back for 11 cars, and all of the stormwater management will run into a new infiltration basin in the back there for treatment and detention and recharge. And we're doing some landscaping, and we're grading on, the reason the 2 lots are on the application is because we're grading over to the other lot, to be able to tie in. So we have some grading over the property line, but Mr. Sotheby owns both pieces of property.
Okay. So the depicted lot is just one of the 2 lots?
Yes, this is one lot here, and then there's an adjacent lot over here.
Is
And
that,
so-
is that adjacent lot the one with the pancake houses on, or is that?
No, there's a single family house on that lot.
Okay.
The pancake house is 3 lots down.
Thank you.
There's the foundation and there's the adjacent.
assume it's a single-family residence.
And you did review Brent's memo.
Yes, I have, I saw the comments, everything, we can make all those changes.
Okay. I'd just like to thank Mr. Garner of the commission for his comments, because I think most of them, perhaps all of them, come from him, so thank you, Bob. Any concerns about any of them? You think it seemed easy enough to me to
Yeah,
accommodate?
I read through them, and they're all good comments, and I can easily make those changes on the plans, yeah.
Regarding the second one for the geotextile installation under the sub-base for the parking lot, I mean, I'm not trying to add any undue expense to the project. I just thought maybe if that was something that was considered in the design of the parking lot sub-base, because the soils were described as loamy sand.
Yes.
I didn't see the soils, but evidently somebody from Meridian did. So I assume that they took that into consideration when they designed the sub-base, whether a geotextile was warranted or not.
Yeah, that's something, another gentleman from the office, he actually did some soil testing in the back here, so he was on site to see, so I didn't specifically see the soils, but I could take a double check that.
Yeah, just double check on that,
Yeah.
just to make sure there wasn't an oversight.
Yeah.
All right, so in this situation, I don't think we want to mandate that, is what you're saying, Bob?
Correct.
We
Yes.
just want to ensure that you give it due consideration from an engineering point of view.
Right.
And it may have already been considered.
Yeah, I can double check that.
So if I could, subsequent,
Yeah.
my attendance at the MACC annual spring conference also fortuitously put me in contact with representatives from Groundscapes who are the purveyors of filter mitt.
Okay.
And it seems that the detail on the plan sheet, I think it's the third sheet with the
Yeah, I do.
details, that the detail that shows one sausage or segment of the filter mitt going on top of the other one is apparently no longer favored by them. And I think I made some comment in the memo about my experience where that had been used, and it actually left a fairly good hole for sediment to go through the erosion control barrier. So I was perusing their website today, and I think you should download, this is the detail for butting ends of their filter mitt product together,
Okay.
which shows them installed as parallel, which I had experience on the site, actually the Forest Ridge site, where they had done it according to that detail on your plan sheet, and it was not working. A softball could roll through because of the stiffness. You got 12 inches of compost or whatever, it trying to make that real quick 90-degree bend up over the end of another one still leaves a tunnel through there. So they've apparently changed their detail because I downloaded that from their website just an hour before the meeting.
Oh, all right, yeah, you
So,
can make that change.
Well, if you don't make it and they install it that way, I'm gonna make them change it on the site because I can't have erosion control with a hole through it. I did also want to ask, on the plans that I've marked before the commission here, I put a suggestion, and I want to discuss with you this evening, if you could turn to the plan sheet 2 of 3. Even though we have the same ownership on these two abutting parcels, 12 and 4, there's proposed fill and grading that goes over onto 12 Main Street. And our normal procedure would be, as I've shown with the pink line here, would be to arc the erosion control up along that filled material to keep it from going across the site. Now, Mr. Sotheby may want to have erodible soils move across his property and go down to the erosion control barrier that's down below the proposed basin. But our normal standard, and I believe the standard of most erosion control specialists, is to have the erosion control barrier installed as close to the limit of disturbance or placement of fill as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my mind, I was just, if this was gonna run, it would hit the filter mitt down here. Yeah, and I mean, installing it this way, you're sort of going perpendicular with the contours, but I mean, I could.
Yeah,
I
but
could-
that is, according to our aerial photos, that's where all the deposited fill is,
Mm,
on the adjacent site.
mm,
And so I'm being a cautious Yankee. I don't like to see erodible material go across what may not be stabilized deposited fill, because it'll just gain
Right.
and possibly increase the movement of sediment. So again, I mean, we can certainly work this out on the site.
Mm.
I'm just saying that our normal standard would be to tighten up that nearest erosion control barrier and have it follow the slope up where that fill is deposited.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you are going to revise the plans and you think that that is a prudent suggestion, then why don't you adjust that? But again, it's not gonna, just like the geotextile fabric, not gonna necessarily be a fabric, a requirement, but we always require additional erosion control to be available on site. And, you know, if something happens in the field or when I'm inspecting, I may call for it to be put in place there anyway,
Okay.
if we get a storm and stuff starts moving.
Yeah.
You pay for dirt. Most people that I deal with
Yeah.
don't like their dirt taking a trip,
Right.
because they then have to cost them more money, so.
Right. Okay, yeah, I can take a look at that, yeah. Go ahead.
Anything else, Brent?
No.
Any other comments by commissioners? Rob, anything else you'd like to add?
No, that was the only one I just wanted to bring up.
Okay. Any members of the public have any comments or concerns? Okay. So it sounds like the gist of this is,
Doug?
yes.
Yes, she raised her hand. This is
Oh, I'm sorry. I
That's
didn't see you.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought I was looking right at
I'm
you.
invisible.
Not. What would you like to say? First of
I'm
all, who are you?
Eliana Paglia.
Okay.
I'm the abutter in the back
Okay.
of this proposed. And I'm also, the border on the, like the High Street and down to Ipswich line. I'm also on that line too.
Okay.
My question is, you know where the weir outlet is here? In this infiltration basin?
Yeah, it's sort of. in
The direction that it's going in?
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. Can that be moved to, like, to the side, to to Mr. Sotheby's property and not directly headed towards mine?
Oh, it's heading towards,
Yeah.
going,
Right.
to 12 Main Street.
Mhm.
That would be hard to do just because of the elevation. I mean, that was the best location for that, just because it was on the downhill side of the pond. I mean, there's not gonna be I mean, that's an infiltration basin, so.
I understand that.
There's, most of the stormwater is gonna be infiltrated into the pond and not really flow over the weir. That's like an emergency overflow weir.
Exactly, but there's no guarantee that it won't.
Right.
And I already have that problem in Ipswich.
Okay.
This is why I addressed it now,
Hmm.
because my uncle had not addressed it then, and I have problems now, which I can't do anything about. But
Okay.
right now, I would like to do something about this, if it can be done, because I really don't want it to go in that direction. Can't you divert the basin, the weir thing to Mr. Sotheby's property?
Yeah,
Just
I
change
have
the direction?
Yeah, I probably could do that and have it go that direction. I'd have to take a look at that again, yeah.
Okay, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think the issue you're talking about is that the 75 contour tends to go up like,
Right, you're sort of,
Like
you're
that.
climbing here, yeah.
you're climbing a little bit there.
Yes.
So, but it doesn't start to do that until part of the way across the lot.
Mm.
So, yeah. so
Is
maybe
it, is it possible to do a slight berm very slight, just before the erosion control barrier that would not allow direct linear flow directly towards her abutting property.
Oh, put a berm
That-
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would just allow it to spread out if it did go over and infiltrate there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we'll propose like a level spreader down here, but I mean, it's already, we're showing 10 feet wide, so it basically is a level spreader once it comes over that.
Well, right,
Yeah.
the concern is that when it does discharge,
Mhm.
that there's nothing to prevent it from going directly to the rear boundary line, even though I think that distance is about 60 or 70
It's a
feet.
long way.
Yeah, it is a long
The
way.
other
It is.
issue is all of this water heads down my property. It's already,
Yeah.
the elevation is higher
Oh, basically
than
goes
this,
that way.
than that, than the next lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's about
Yeah.
100 feet from the,
Right.
you know, from the spillway to the property line in the back there.
I mean, if you say that even in a situation where you do get overflow, and even with the fact that we've got Class C soils, that distance of vegetative cover would be sufficient to mitigate and ameliorate
Mm.
and disperse any flow before it did actually cross the property line. I mean, if you
Mm.
want to make some kind of statement like that, or if you want to take into consideration what I just said, some type of just slight grading along that erosion control barrier that just caused it to sort of spread out.
Yeah, you could easily open that line, you know, off to the back of the lot and create it so it'll end up going in that direction
Well,
even more.
to a point, I mean,
Yeah.
that, it is kind of a slope there.
You know.
Well, the dance here is that this is designed and that will probably, is
Yeah.
anticipated not to receive any flow under most normal conditions, but it will at some point in time when Mother's Day event.
Right, I think
2006 Mother's Day
I'd have to
event.
look at the stormwater report. Yeah, I think it only maybe flowed over for the 100-year storm. Yeah.
But it can happen.
But it can happen.
That's
yeah.
the point.
Yeah.
Here was 100-year, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mrs. Paglia, part of the reason this whole infiltration basin is here
Right.
is so that this doesn't happen.
I
Of course,
understand
it
that,
wasn't there
but
when it was happening.
I'm just
That's why we require
playing the
things like
devil's
this.
advocate
Oh, I
here and
understand.
saying that it could happen, and if
Yeah.
it does happen, it would affect my property.
Right.
That's the only problem I have, because the other one did affect my property.
Right.
So
So it
I'm trying to
makes
play it
sense.
safe right now.
It would make sense to try and prevent something like that in the event that that would happen. And I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
I want that to be,
No,
So I mean, I can look at yeah.
Well, the other issue is the property line back here, the elevation is about 2 or 3 feet higher back here than my lot. On your property, right? Isn't
I
it
know,
a
but
lot higher?
groundwater is, you know, we have very high table in
Yeah.
Raleigh, you know, so, water table, so, I mean, you never know.
Right.
How is it higher?
You know, we didn't anticipate this winter, but we got it, so we never know.
What do you say it's higher, Mr. Sotheby? It looks like back here, the back of the lot,
At the
looks
lot
like
line, where
72,
the stone wall
73.
is, her property is about 2 feet higher than my property.
Well, it's between a 73 and a 72.
What are you looking?
We're looking at the
Yeah, this-
contours expressed on the plan.
This is 72, and this is about 76 up here.
So,
No, I'm talking down here.
It's a gradual slope, basically down.
yeah, it's pretty flat.
73. It's pretty flat, but it doesn't, it's not depicted as rising there.
Right.
Unless it rises beyond where the contours are shown.
Good.
Yes, beyond 72 to the west.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter, I mean, however you wanna send it, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can
This
look
can
at.
be open just slightly.
I'm just,
Push
observation.
that there, and it all head that way.
I know, Mother's Day, all the water went towards the pancake house.
That would still be better.
From Jewett Hill, across the road, onto my property, through the pancake house.
Yeah.
Through my house.
Through her house, you know?
Exactly.
Again-
Right over the crown
This is
of
what I don't want to
1A,
get.
onto my property.
But that's exactly why we have the infiltration basin.
Oh, no,
That's
no,
why
I
they're
under- no, I
required.
understand,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
I
saying.
know you do, and I hope Mrs. Paglia understands too, is
Yes,
that
I
that's why
appreciate
we mandate that.
Right,
Is to prevent exactly this from happening,
right,
so.
and I appreciate that.
So I can take a look at, moving this spillway over towards, so it's more directed towards Mr. Sotheby's property.
Yeah,
Thank
I think that would be,
It wouldn't take much.
Yeah.
That's probably the best solution.
Yeah.
One more thought, if I may, this is gonna seem silly, but you may wanna give yourself an easement with regard to the work that's done over on the other piece of
Right.
property. I mean, who knows what happens in life, and different people could own it and may not want that encroachment
Mhm.
without the easement.
Mhm.
That takes away lawsuit.
any other comments? Any other concerns? No? In that case, I think with the comments in mind, you're gonna review those issues, and what are we gonna do here? You're gonna need revised plans to a degree, am I right? Well, I suppose.
Right, but we voted contingent
Yeah.
upon receipt of and review of the
Right, right.
revised plans, and I think I did make that suggestion here.
I was just wondering if there were even gonna need to be, because some of these recommendations are just recommendations for consideration.
Well, the erosion control detail, we want changed.
That we would have
And
to
I
change. So, yeah.
believe a review of my suggestion about erosion control coming up where the fill is placed on 12 Main Street may result in a reconfiguration. We've already talked about a possible realignment now of the weir discharge to the basin. So there are going to be some plan revisions, but I don't think they're substantive enough to bother to continue the hearing process.
No,
You can just
no.
check those.
Correct, yeah,
Mr.
so.
Rokas and I can,
Work
can
together
talk
on that.
back and forth. He can submit PDFs to me prior to it being committed to actual paper sheets so that we can make sure that, it meets everybody's desires and the intent of the discussion here tonight.
So, with that in mind, I think what I need is a motion to close the hearing and to issue the stormwater management permit with the typical conditions along with the ones we've discussed, and subject to submittal of revised plans acceptable to Brent upon his review within, is 14 days sufficient for you?
14 days to make the changes?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
So do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? The motion carries. Thank you, ma'am, for your input. I think that was helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's raining out. Yeah. What about, oh, goodness.
Recess stand?
Right. It's all relative. You highlighted each one of them.
Huh?
You highlighted each one of them.
Well, I scanned it, so I could fill it out there.
Oh, all right, good. Okay.
This is the 8 o'clock matter. This is a continued notice of intent for 56 Newburyport Turnpike, map 7, parcel 12, marked Silvery. Proposed removal of trailers and construction, trailers, etc., and construction of a 40 by 125 metal commercial building, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone. Welcome.
Hi,
Well, you've had,
it's been a while.
been a while, had a number of hearings in front of planning, or
We
at least a
have,
number of
yes.
submissions. I don't know how many hearings.
We've had a couple, and yeah, there was a lot of back and forth, making revisions on the plan, so, where we've ended up is, originally, if you remember, the building was proposed on this side of the property. So now we're basically running it at the top of that slope, at the back side of the parking lot. Putting the septic over here, putting our stormwater here, and, the planning board wanted us to pave it up to the 100-foot setback here. So this area is gonna be repaved, and there's gonna be a rain garden and a riprap swale to collect any stormwater coming off the driveway here. But in any event, there's the 100-foot buffer zone and the 50, and the area, certainly there's a lot less building in the 100-foot in this configuration, so that's a good thing. Everything is going downhill this way on the project. This driveway is actually gonna be removed, vegetated. And before we were actually using it, so that's another kind of a big change. Anyone have any questions?
Is the parking lot gonna be hot done?
No.
No.
It's only gonna be paved, the driveway area is gonna be paved. It already is currently partially paved, and the planning board wanted us to pave it up to this point here. So,
Brent, comments?
So some comments were submitted based on the planning board requesting comments for this particular plan revision. It's understood that the plans are in a state of flux. My desire tonight was, because the project had changed in regards to the locus of the building, and there were now other activities that had not necessarily been presented to the commission, I wanted to make sure that the applicant's representative had the ability to explain the project changes to the commission. Commissioner Garner did get a chance to look at the stormwater analysis. He submitted basically 3 comments, which I think are possibly might be comments that are also hearing in the planning board process. The first one was about the erosion control detail, and that was that.
did I get a copy of that, or is this?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm reading it right now, and I will
All right.
provide you with a copy. Our standard and my discussions with a number of professionals, certified erosion control specialists, that we require in an installation where hay bales or filter mitt or straw wattle is used in conjunction with the black silt fence, that the fibrous material, the hay bales or whatever, be on the disturbance side.
Yes, upstream side.
Upstream side. There's a couple of reasons for that. With the installation of silt fence, you dig down and you disturb the soil in order to tuck the skirt of the silt fence in. The silt fence is provided with a couple of parallel lines to even give you guidance so that you do embed at least 6 inches is recommended. So that results in a disturbed soil surface. The reason that there seems to be a consensus now on putting either hay bales or straw wattle or compost sock on that disturbance side is that disturbed soil, especially as we get into the time of year where the soil's frozen, or we go from frozen ground conditions or whatever, I've actually seen this happen. The black silt fence will conduct heat down, and it will thaw out that loosened, disturbed soil, and water, silt-laden water that's being prevented by the filter fabric from moving into undisturbed areas will then actually follow that loosened disturbance that's thawed out and exit on the downstream side, if you will, side of, and any hay bales or anything put there doesn't filter that at all. But if that product is on the upstream side, it will not only provide weight and keep those disturbed soils even though they thaw out, it'll keep weight on top of them to compact them so that the water won't work its way through, but it will also then filter any water if it does work through. That's the reason.
Okay.
So
what's
bottom
the-
line is reverse the detail.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the bottom
all
line.
right.
Number two.
Which isn't hard to do, just thought you'd be interested in the explanation.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Well, I like to explain it because
it
it
makes
took
sense,
me a
actually.
while to
Yeah.
figure out exactly why some people were just saying, no, do it that way. So,
No, it makes sense the way you just explained it.
Commissioner Garner's next comment was estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation is not indicated on this drawing and is relevant to the proposed elevations of the bottom of the infiltration trench.
The infiltration trench.
Okay.
There's a detail,
Mhm.
maybe it's below. Yeah, there it is, yeah. I was just curious where the groundwater elevation would be, because
Okay.
obviously you'd want some kind of separation between the seasonal high groundwater
Well,
surface and the bottom of the trench.
DEP standard, I believe, is that
2
there be
feet.
2 feet,
Yeah, 2 feet.
24 inches of separation,
Right.
so.
Mhm.
Yeah. And number three, no detail of the rain garden is provided.
At least on this sheet, so I don't know, maybe there was another, is there another sheet?
No, this is
There are.
sheet 404, so there's at least
Yeah.
3 others.
Oh, okay, yeah, I just didn't have a copy of the rain garden detail, so.
All right.
But I think there was comments, both in my comments, I think, to the planning board about this, was also seeking some better understanding of the functioning of the rain gardens. And,
Mhm.
if they did overtop, where they would discharge to and how that would be.
Right.
So what was
Mitigated.
decided on was that this was gonna be riprap,
Okay.
and that any discharge from there would then go to where it normally goes now, to the catch basins.
All right, so this is this the rain garden?
There's a rain garden here,
Here. yeah,
and this was originally a rain garden,
now
but
gonna
it's
be
now a
riprap.
riprap.
Okay. Makes sense.
Now, to a much more fundamental comment in regards to regulated wetland resource areas. The existing drainage swale
Mhm.
is actually functioning as an intermittent stream. And per the regulations under the Wetlands Protection Act, it has, or should have, depicted on the plans, a 100-foot buffer zone. Because there's bordering vegetated wetlands up gradient, and this follows the drainage swale and goes down, goes underneath Newburyport Turnpike and discharges into forested bordering vegetated wetlands on the Ipswich or eastern side of Route 1. That makes it an intermittent stream, and I distributed to everybody tonight the highlighted sections of MACC's guidebook, which also include the definition of a stream.
Okay, regulated.
Yeah, so when you have two regulated wetland resource areas that have a hydraulic gradient between them, and in this case, we understand that this water course is an intermittent stream because it doesn't flow most of the year. But according to the definitions, even if it only flows in direct response to precipitation, it still is classified as being a water course or a stream channel, an intermittent stream in that regards. And it is subject to protection because it's performing the important function of connectivity between the up gradient bordering vegetated wetlands and the down gradient. No matter how many culverts ditches, aqueducts, if we had Roman aqueducts, if it was flowing through that, it ends up being, so there should be, your 100-foot buffer zone should follow that drainage channel down to,
Like this.
Yeah, it should.
So-
now I believe where it goes subterranean, I believe you would stop there.
Okay,
I don't believe we would, I've got to check on this, but I don't believe we, with an underground subterranean culvert, that there would be an above-ground 100-foot buffer zone in relationship to that. But
okay,
all that drainage channel, where quote-unquote it has daylight,
okay,
it's considered above-ground water. But it's still considered that it performs the function of the hydraulic connection even though it goes through the underground culvert. So it doesn't lose its status as a resource area, it just doesn't have a buffer zone,
right,
is my understanding.
okay.
A regulated buffer zone.
That suggests to me that if you culvert the open part, that you've got done away with the need for buffer zone and tie it into the existing underground culvert.
Yeah, but it doesn't remove, again, it doesn't remove the fact that there's regulated buffer zone there.
Right.
Because,
Which means you have to depict.
because right now
doesn't
what's
mean that's a
depicted
problem
is
necessarily.
all coming
Right.
from the bordering vegetated wetlands that is on the abutting property.
Right. Okay.
But it is considered the, well, actually, yeah, they couldn't do that at this point in time because an intermittent stream channel is considered to, and this is gonna sound strange, I know, it's considered to have one bank. And bank is a protected resource area also. So with an intermittent stream, you consider it that it only has one. Yeah, it's.
Well, I thought I heard you say that it's buffer zone on each side of it. If that's the case.
Well,
If you
yes.
only got one bank, wouldn't you only have a buffer zone on one side?
No, no, because the buffer zone is actually off
That's
of the
both
water
sides of the
course.
bank.
Right.
Right.
On whichever side you want to say has a bank, then okay, it's off the bank, but in this case,
Doesn't
because
matter.
it's a ditch, it,
Buffer
for
zone
all
extends
intents
to
and
both
purposes,
sides.
you just scale off to 100 feet from the center line of the ditch.
So basically, the plans have to show the buffer zone and it's a regulated resource.
Speaking
Well,
of-
it just increases, but we know this project was going to
Yeah.
be involved
Right.
Yeah.
in that anyway, because any of the water, any of the stormwater coming off here is going to make its way into that existing drainage ditch. And one of the reasons why we're reviewing this project is so we don't get detrimental down gradient
This
impacts.
stormwater is not gonna go into this ditch.
No, but the rain gardens,
Everything will
the
go-
pavement of the driveway now.
It actually will go through, into the rain garden, or into the storm, into the,
Right.
riprap. Anything off the building is gonna go into the infiltration trenches,
Right.
so it's not gonna be impacted.
Well, the establishment of 200 feet of buffer zone, is that creating any problems with regard to what's on the map already?
200 feet?
No, no, no.
100
Well,
on
100 feet
each
on either side,
200
but
feet.
Oh, oh.
that's on the abutting property,
Okay.
so we're only concerned about the 100 feet on this side where the project is occurring.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking more generally, I think this configuration seems like an overall improvement. It's, apart from the,
It appears that it reduces some of the challenges that we were experiencing
yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
about that change in grade and
well, that's what I was just
And
gonna
the
say,
building
because it's
being-
some,
Yeah, it goes with the,
More flat
goes
portion.
with the contours.
right.
It definitely works better. I think the original thought was, most of the buildings are over here now. Everyone's used to using the property that way, and that was originally where he thought it would be the best fit. But, I agree, this is a
For mine.
pretty, it's a pretty smooth layout, I like it. The planning board is pretty happy with everything, at this point. The only thing that's gonna be different, because this plan is being upgraded, as you said, there were a few outstanding items.
Mhm.
And that was right here where I've hatched. We had only hatched the pavement up to there. They want the pavement up to the 100 foot, which at this point too, now with this whole thing is gonna be in that
Right.
100-foot, so.
Right.
They want, eastern white pines, like speckled around, not in a row, so we're gonna
A
change
little
the
dispersal to make it more of
natural,
a thick buffer instead of just a single
and,
edge.
and that this, they wanted this to be your breath, and not the rain garden. So, everything's coming to a close.
Good, so that was good that we had,
Huh?
Yeah.
and it's good that we had this
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
it's-
So at this point, are these the types of things that we can make changes on the plan and have a decision tonight and have, because none of these sound too, most of them are just small details.
Strikes me they're mostly plan revisions more than
Yeah, but technically,
distinctions in principle.
technically we don't have Mr. Graham's
Feedback on.
sign off.
Oh, I know.
Stormwater review and.
Could that be
Kinda want
contingent
that.
as well?
He may not have signed off, but the revisions, he's told you, it's my understanding, he's told you all the revisions he requires to sign off. Is that, That's-
I'm sorry, I didn't.
these revisions, making this riprap,
Yes.
the pavement, the sprinkling of the pines,
Mhm.
are the only changes he has, that he hasn't seen on a plan yet.
Yeah, that's our understanding.
And at that point, he'd be ready to accept it from a stormwater point of view as
Yeah.
well as a planning point of view.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends on how the commission, because you can certainly make it contingent upon review in the office
Right.
of any revised plans to, to make sure that we don't have anything else raise its head.
But we aren't,
We definitely need an accurate depiction of where, the fact that we've now identified
Right.
that the drainage swale actually needs to have a 100-foot buffer.
but that's
zone.
just a plan revision, it's
And
not
that's
a
a plan-
change in the,
yeah,
in
no.
the, in the,
Well, it does technically increase the regulated,
of course it does.
the direct, remember in Rowley, the buffer zone is a resource area
Yeah.
under our bylaw. No, we discuss things that are relatively, minor, and yes, all plan revisions, if all the commissioners are
If you
are
feel
comfortable, you can vote and make it contingent, like I said, on review of the revisions.
Yeah.
Plan revisions,
You
so that
can
we just make sure it's.
bang those
Now,
out
what-
if they're not right.
Liz, when are you next in front of planning?
I'm actually not sure what the date is. Do you know when they meet next?
No, not without running down and looking at the
Yeah,
calendar.
I'm not sure off the top of my
Okay.
head.
We usually say 14 days to submit revised plans, but of course it has to be after that date, so I don't know, what do you think?
Make it contingent on the end of the month. I'm sure there's gonna be a planning board meeting before the
Between
end of the
then.
month.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
makes sense,
Since we're
yeah.
in the first.
So by March 30th. When do we next meet?
We meet on the 24th.
Okay.
So
So if
that
we don't
would also provide the opportunity, if there's something that raises its head,
Yep.
that would be considered new,
Yep.
new information that would have a bearing on the commission's decision. That would also give us the opportunity to come back in and address if there was. So it gives us kind of a contingency thing
Yeah,
there too.
yeah. Contingency on the contingency.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like
There's
that.
contingency.
Plots within plots, plans within plans.
So March 24th is the
I'm
CC
sure,
next
I'm sure
meeting.
the
But we won't
landowners will
necessarily
be
be.
pleased with
won't need to-
contingent contingency. Looks like he's trying to get a grip on that. No, I think that makes sense.
Okay,
Um,
so if something comes up before the 24th that appears to be something that needs to be discussed, we can plan to come back
Right.
together. Otherwise, you'll plan to have our revisions in hand by the 30th.
Right.
Well, and this also gives you the opportunity, if in us having our discussion back and forth ends up being the finalized plans, if I say I understood the commission to want it this way, and you say, no, that's not what I heard, or whatever, it gives you the opportunity also to come back in.
I'm so like that, aren't I? No, I'm.
No, We're trying to be very respectful and not paint you into a corner that we give an approval tonight and then you wanna adjust something that you just didn't happen to think of.
Right, right.
Well, the other way we could do it, given the timing, is we could just continue it to the 24th, not require you to be here unless something comes up. Review the, vote on it at that point. I mean, it's a little different to vote to approve it with as many contingencies as we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of boxes all of us into a corner if there is a problem. I don't know, what do you think? What would you prefer to do? If we did it that way, we'd certainly be on the understanding that you don't need to appear on the 24th unless some issue has come up. You don't need to, your client doesn't need to.
So it's almost as good as getting that.
It's almost
Yeah.
the
The
same,
answer
yeah.
today.
Yeah, and we could, that would be reasonable. I mean, that's reasonable.
'Cause,
You don't-
obviously you're
It's
not,
more like stepping forward instead of maybe stepping a little too far forward and then having
Right.
to step back, so.
because obviously you're not starting the execution of the project real soon under present field conditions.
No, not really. Doing too many things out there lately.
Yeah, I mean, if it were July, we might look at this differently, or August, and really trying to get it moving.
And we don't consider the hearing closed until all the documentation is correct. That's my understanding of interfacing with the department,
Mm-hmm.
that if they did vote to issue tonight, it's still the actual closing of the hearing process is when the final submittals, the documentations that are gonna make up the record
Correct.
are complete.
Correct, yeah.
But, yeah, if you continue it till the 24th, then you don't have to worry about any of this.
If that's okay with you, let's do it that way.
That's
It just
fine.
seems-
We'll stay in
feels better.
communication and,
Yeah.
and we'll,
Okay.
keep on the same page. as
But
far as-
generally, I think it's a bad thing. I think it solves the principal problems we had with the last configuration.
Definitely. It's got a lot of good qualities, I think, compared to the last one. So, all right.
Okay, so with your consent, I'll need a motion to continue this to the March 24th hearing.
I'll move.
And a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against, the motion carries. Okay, great. And just let Brent know, or Brent may just walk down the hall and find out when that planning board hearing is.
All right. All right, thank you.
Okay,
You know,
thank
he
you.
usually sends the agenda. I'm trying to get it to send it to me a little quicker than just the day of the meeting.
It's right there. Can't you just talk to him?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I do. I got a Nerf ball that I throw over the divider.
Hello. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh,
This is the 810 item, a new request for a certificate of compliance, 63-628 for 65 Wilson Pond Lane, map 6, parcel 41, lot 20, and land off Wilson Pond Lane, known as lot 11, map 6, parcel 41, lot 29-A, Carol Clear and Farmhouse Lane Realty Trust. So this, did you see Brent's memo?
Yes.
You're Mr. Clear, right?
yes.
Yeah. We did this a while ago,
Yep.
just about a year ago.
March 2014.
Just exactly a year ago. And it's all functioning fine as far as, not that you could tell in these conditions?
Well, it's got, yeah, we went through periodically checking on it the first year. And the goal was to get all the areas of disturbance and submergence that were really terra firma to get revegetated, which, as you can see in the pictures, is accomplished. And I guess Mr. Clear can relate whether his back is aching from clearing out the culvert or just from snow removal.
wondering why I waited so long to pursue this.
Yeah, some people wait a lot longer.
Yeah, it is functioning very well. It's a very controlled flow. It worked fantastic. The only time we had any issue was, there was one point, I think in the fall, where we got real heavy rain, like several inches, I think, over the course of a day or two. You couldn't quite keep up with that, but otherwise it's worked like a charm. Brings it down to a certain level, well, brings it down to the level of the culvert, and then
Yeah, which was what the intention was, to get the pond back to the culvert invert
Yeah.
right elevation. Oh, good.
When those things work, they work well. Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Any commissioners have any questions? Brent, anything you want to add to your memo?
No?
Okay.
Mr. Clare said it all, and wondered why he waited so long, so.
All right.
The gentleman he chose to do it, Mr. Skip Lyle, is
Yeah, he was
partially
great.
an artiste in regards to coming up with customized installations that are not aesthetically displeasing and blend themselves into the terrain.
Actually, my wife, when he pulled up with the wood, she was like, "Oh, that's so ugly." So he primed it first to make it green and blend in a little bit.
Pretty good. You might have the only primed and painted beaver deceiver going. All right, well, unless there's anything else, I need a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with the ongoing condition that the maintenance of the beaver deceiver is the responsibility of the property owner. It's an ongoing requirement in perpetuity. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against, and the motion carries. Okay, you are all set.
Great, thank you.
I almost asked, what do you prime for? Yeah. It's a little too late.
Clear enough to know.
Thank you. Waking me up.
Anytime.
Concludes the formal agenda for specific items. It brings us to status reports, permits, and enforcement.
All right, well, I kind of have some discussion items which aren't necessarily in regards to permits and enforcement. I didn't know if you noticed that behind me is our new Hunsley Hills trail map.
I did notice.
And I did also happen to know whether commissioners saw the email that I was able to install the map in the kiosk. It barely fits though. It takes up the whole width and almost the whole height, so I did pass out tonight. You should have received 2 8.5 by 11 white pieces of paper that had some editing done to the text that they were previously, they've been in the kiosk. And so,
Must be these.
trail use guidelines is one. And the other is Hunsley Hills Conservation Area that starts off with a history.
Yeah, they were in the first version.
Well, anyway, with the assistance of Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and our senior service person, Jean, I sat down and we figured out some distances because we thought folks coming to Hunsley Hills would be better apprised of the extent of our now marked and delineated network if they had an idea as to what the distances were out there. And so we added onto the trail use guideline sheet the fact that the full perimeter starting from 1, going to 2, 3, the large loop to 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then back to the kiosk is almost exactly a mile. Within enough that you can round it to be a mile. So doing what we call the long loop, because we thought we should give people a flavoring and not just hard specifics about the distances of your trail. So we called the long loop, if you started at the parking lot kiosk, came up and went 2, 3, and then took this big segment to 4, and then came back around, kind of makes a nice loop that gives you a lot of variety, but also gives you a little bit of a workout. But that's 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
And because we have those folks that just want to know what is it when I go to the top or whatever, we worked out that going from 1, 2, 9, 4 to 5 to the power lines is 1/4 of a mile. So in other words, you do a half mile if you just go up to the top and then go back, if you want to do that. And then we thought for those folks that probably don't want to do 2 climbs, we and the names are subject to however you want it changed. We call it the halfway to the top loop. So if you go up from the parking lot kiosk, go up to 2, 9, 10, 11, 7, and back down to 8. See, that based on the contours, that only brings you up the first slope and then kind of puts you on relatively level terrain there.
Right.
That is 1/3 of a mile. So you can plan on whether to just take a snack bar and a bottle of water, or if you want a full liter of water and a sandwich. And if you want to spend, just an hour taking a walk, or if you want to spend a couple of hours enjoying the woods.
Right.
Gives you an idea of the distances.
That's good. Yeah, I did get it. It was in the packet that you gave us, yeah.
And the other document, the Hunsley Hills Conservation Area, under the history, it had some commentary referring to, I think, a future trail network or something like that. So we made it accurate to the present tense and present condition of the trail network.
Okay. Thank you.
So Gene and I worked on that. And then I also thought, since the commission was nice enough to pay my registration and expenses to attend the environmental conference, I made up a little sheet that has the MACC logo on the top. There was probably about 7 workshops that I wished I could go to, but you can only attend 4 because they do 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, how they space them out. So these happen to be the 4 that I chose. In their desire to be environmentally correct, they haven't distributed the electronic versions of any of the notes or presentations yet, but that will occur. So the first workshop I went to was the importance of using native plants in ecological restoration and conservation permitting. And that actually, just to give you a short summary, there was discussion about a strategy that we probably would have may have had a different discussion with the Brad Street Farm area if I'd known about it, and that is called subtractive restoration. Subtractive restoration.
Never heard of it before.
Well, what it
Makes
is,
sense,
the gentlemen who were presenting to us, Mr. Poatland, president of Poatland Ecological Services, and Mr. Seth Wilkinson, of Wilkinson Ecological Design. Mr. Wilkinson business does a lot of restoration work down on the Cape. Coastal Bank.
He does title stuff too.
Yeah, a lot of coastal stuff. But anyway, so what subtractive restoration is you go in and you either hand pull or treat with herbicides every single invasive plant stem within the area that you're intending to restore. Because he said in many instances when you go in and get the invasive component out, you will actually see that there's a substantial native component that has just been being suppressed or has been overrun. And he did say that, you know, he actually advocated that even though that seemed rather intensive at first, he said that actually not only it then allows you to figure out whether you need to do supplemental planting, but he said that puts everything on an even keel. He says you still do have to monitor and go back in and pull the invasives to keep either their residual seed stock or any of the residual root systems that you didn't get when you did the pulling or the treatment from coming back up. But he said that seemed to have the most success. But he did recommend minimum 3-year to 5-year monitoring. Now that's also what DEP is recommending now for replication areas too. So that's anyway, it's nice to hear the private sector, not just the regulatory sector, saying that that's the time period to look at these things. So that was a little tidbit out of that workshop. The next workshop I went to, culvert replacement projects and ecosystem connectivity. I've actually kind of been to a workshop like this before, but this has a lot of bearing on stormwater, even though the focus of the eco-connectivity is not to have culverts that are perched or that are not functioning in terms of they're too narrow and the critters and the wildlife won't go through them. So this is where you get, so the new stream crossing standards, which are part of EPA's, I believe, construction general permit, and also incorporated now in the Wetlands Protection Act, actually in the regulations, which call for openness or whatever, are all kind of based on deferring or advocating that instead of using a round conduit that's just filled with water, that if you do use a round conduit, that it's embedded, that you make sure that whatever your distance is, that you allow what they call openness, and that is so that any animal, reptile, herp, or even small mammals, so they aren't afraid to go through. And also it allows quote unquote continuity. You have material in there that acts as a stream bed. And so you also then have bank going through your culvert. And this also usually coincides with you also making it compliant with flood standards. Because most culverts, when they were initially installed, were never ever sized to allow flows during 10-year or 100-year events.
Down in Hamilton, we had a very hard time keeping soil at the bottom.
Yeah, well, yes, there are a number of problems with this, so that's why the open arches, open bottom box culverts,
Square
whatever,
box,
where,
yeah.
yeah. So,
So what happens when you wanna clean these out, if you've got bank running through them?
well, see, you don't
You don't
quote
clean 'em.
unquote clean them out, you
You
remove
oversize.
restrictions from
You
them.
oversize the culvert and leave the bottom
Yeah,
third.
that's why it's.
But the
it's
water-
But
it's a
it,
lot.
see, but it actually helps you. The fact that it's open now, that it's open, you can visually inspect them. You don't have to rely on trying to do cameras or mirrors, you know, down your hands and knees trying to look through a 12-inch culvert that, you know, isn't of adequate size and stuff, so. But, so that was focused on ecological connectivity, but it actually really speaks to both stormwater, flood control, and these other things that are all starting to come together under the regulation. So it's kind of that you have to do this in many instances, but it ends up having a practicality to it, because then you don't have to go back and replace them as often, or you
Right.
don't get into situations. There's a process called head cutting, and that's when prior to the culvert and the roadway crossing going through, the stream establishes a natural gradient, a natural slope. In many cases, some culverts were installed almost just level, going across whatever the width of the roadbed was.
Which is ridiculous.
So that then causes a waterfall on this end when things can't get in. It then causes a problem up here because sediment and stuff that's trying to move downstream, because sediment always moves downstream. Because you don't have the natural grade, it doesn't move. What it does is it goes into the pipe and it blocks the pipe. So even though we say, oh, they're making us do all this stuff, a lot of it is based on practical experience that is just trying to keep the natural forces of nature moving through there and not hitting a blockage, if you want to call it that.
There's a negative to all this too, and that is that it creates an attractive nuisance for small kids to crawl into these places and get stuck and possibly injured and hurt. But I don't know how you guard against that. The bigger the culvert, the more attractive the nuisance. And
Well, if it's big enough, at least
Yeah.
you won't
Big
have
enough to
baby.
crawl all the way through.
yeah.
I
the size of the child.
Well, I would say, that, you know, each individual situation needs its own appropriate scrutiny and, you know, to try and guard against that. I have seen, what's it called?
I mean, not
I've seen
arguing
culverts
against
that
the
have
idea.
those, is it called a rack guard or
We just
debris
use,
guard?
yeah,
or
we just
whatever?
use the tops of the old screeners when they rot out, and then stick them down there and leave a rope on them, and you can pull them out to clean them, but it also, kids can't, you know, take a good strong person and move them out of it.
Those are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
The third workshop I attended was solar arrays, permitting issues for commissions to consider. I realize we have not had a submittal here in Raleigh, but I did have an inquiry once, and there is always a possibility. Newbury, I think, has two presently. Haverhill, I happen to have one, and I've had two that we did permit. So even though it isn't directly related, it actually, it was interesting from the standpoint of looking at the 8 principal interests of the act, one of which includes prevention of pollution. And because, well, we have a particular solar application in Haverhill where they want to cut down mature forest and install solar panels. That is not the credits given for renewable energy actually discourage that by being ratcheted down a certain percentage, because that's not considered the most favorable application. But it had an interesting discussion with the DEP presenter in regards to carbon dioxide, which has been declared a pollutant And therefore, rather, you know, you should consider not just that a solar facility is good because it avoids the emission of carbon dioxide, but rather that's an appropriate trade-off for the forest, which is banking and sequestering carbon dioxide.
Doesn't make sense to
Remove that.
cut off one end, you know,
Yeah,
try to
yeah.
prevent on the other.
Well,
It
did
doesn't
you,
make sense.
did you go 2 steps forward, or did
Yeah.
you go 1 step forward and then 1 step back by
It's
changing it?
stupid.
But anyway, that's a decision, again, site-specific and for the individual application.
You referred to the act, you referring to the Wetlands Protection Act?
Yes,
AMA?
yeah.
Um,
One of the principal interests is the prevention of pollution.
Has our planning board done anything about setting up an area to be zoned for this kind of thing? Or are we just waiting for
I
an
can
application
inquire,
to come in
I
and
don't know the
scramble
answer to
it?
that question.
It would be zoning, not planning, but,
Well, doesn't planning proposes the zoning changes?
well, right, but it would be a zoning change.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, it would come from planning.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if you could inquire if
Yeah, I
they're
could
doing
inquire.
anything proactively.
There's a zoning review committee. I don't know if that's one of the topics they're working on or not.
It's tricky because it's federal as well. There's some preemption issues, just as there are with, you know, it's like cell towers, for example. You can try to zone them out, that doesn't mean you'll succeed.
Well, and speaking of federal presumptions, you can see that the last workshop I went to, the Kinder Morgan proposed gas
Probably why
pipeline
reading ahead.
was certainly, again, not because we have experienced any gas line applications here in Raleigh, but I have actually gone through one in Haverhill. And again, it was just informative. The Army Corps of Engineers had a presenter there, Corey Rose, who was actually reviewing their standards for regulatory review because of any wetlands is considered placement of fill under the Clean Water Act, and that they have a 5,000 square foot trigger, which that number should sound familiar to folks since we have a 5,000 square foot limit in the Wetlands Protection Act also. And the pipeline proposals, if they are going through regulated wetland resource areas, they do need to come before commissions and get issuance of an order of conditions. So that was my
Thanks. Interesting to hear about it.
And also, just because in going to the workshop, I'm sometimes surprised. Well, anyway, I provided the commission with a double-sided page out of MACC's handbook for conservation commissions that is pretty much a true rendition of the Conservation Commission Act, but it is formatted, and they do have, they did put topic or subject, bold subject things in here to make it more readable on it. I just sometimes find it good every so often to go and take a look at this to see, you know, really what conservation commissions are have as their responsibilities and their authorization. And in this particular instance, I was going to just ask the commission because I found it interesting here. Let's see if I can find it again. I believe it talked in here that the commission has the ability to level fines for activities on their conservation land of which they have custody and care. And I lost where that is in here. Because I was thinking of the problem with the dumping issue on Hunsley Hills. Here it is on the second page, number 14, rules and regulations. The commission may adopt rules and regulations governing the use of land and waters under its control and prescribe penalties not exceeding a fine of $100 for any violation thereof. Now, I'm not proposing that we necessarily do something like this. I mean, if dumping is already under the jurisdiction of the police
Just
or
call the police.
possibly the Board of Health or whatever, but here again, every time I look at this, it just, something new jumps out at me that I didn't necessarily realize before, so I just thought I would share that with you, in case you wonder why we do the annual report. And
It's
other
good to
things.
review it, we forgot.
Yeah.
So maybe you can add that on to the police fine. Really give them the fine.
Well, I need to talk to them anyway, so, but again, if it's,
First, we need to
Rowley
catch 'em.
already has.
Yeah, well,
Well, no,
if you catch
actually,
them,
that's
then
separate.
mail.
Yeah, first we need to decide what to do with them if we catch them.
But again,
I
that
know,
maybe
that's the,
just
right.
keep it to the police. And finally, I received an email today from Molly Higgins. She's an AmeriCorps member. She's working with the Bay Circuit Trail folks with the Appalachian Mountain Club. She handed around for you to read. She's seeking to, I guess, get some support and see if she can get some interested folks in Raleigh involved in trail work or whatever. I think this kind of speaks to possibly if the commission wants to kind of make a concerted effort, and maybe if there's one or two commissioners interested to work with myself and Mr. Larry White, who's the chairman of the Finance Committee, who also recently sought appointment to the Open Space Committee. So he is the first appointed member, but he obviously needs some assistance, and I didn't know if there was at least one commissioner, that if we do reconstitute the Open Space Committee, if there was one commissioner among you that might be interested in serving on the Open Space Committee, and if we might possibly want to get together and draft a letter of invitation that we could send to a couple folks who have expressed interest in open space and trails in Raleigh, and see if maybe we could build up an open space committee.
Well, I'm planning on having a meeting with you in Essex County,
Yeah.
when we go down on that.
But you're,
Actually, I'm working with Molly on that trail.
but you're kind of a worker bee. You're
Yeah,
kind of
but
the
I
worker
mean-
bee contractor on this. Do you really want to also then be a committee member?
I have been for too long a committee member in all the other towns. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not discouraging you. If you'd like to,
but anyways,
if
they
you'd like to be on a
want.
reconstituted open space committee here in Raleigh, we'd certainly welcome you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you on that, yeah.
Okay.
So
But yeah.
you've already met Molly?
Oh yeah, I do the trails for the paced circuit,
Yeah.
myopia, all the
Right,
state
you
trails.
mentioned that. Okay.
And we actually did one in Rowley, as Brett discovered it. Snuck up the backside of the hill, 20 feet of it was in,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the backside of Prospect Hill.
Yeah,
Right.
and we're currently doing one out in the Georgetown Raleigh Forest, but you know, that one's kind of a weird one.
Where does Molly live? She a Raleighite?
No, she's not a Rowleyite. I would like to say either Hamilton or Ipswich. They have most of their meetings down that neck of the woods. Rowley, for some reason, is not part of the Essex County Trail Association.
Back in the 70s, when the Queen of the Marshes was active in Raleigh, she had a Bay Circuit committee that she snared me onto. That eventually morphed into, I think, an open space committee, and I eventually wound up on the conservation committee. So I think that all this is good, and I think it hopefully does create a foundation for reestablishing an open space committee, because the interests are quite similar, and that leads me to the point that the Community Preservation Act Committee is supposed to be comprised of one member of the Open Space Committee, and I'm already on the Community Preservation Committee as a representative of this group. So so I would not be interested in extending my service beyond that, but I would certainly be supportive, and it raises the question of whether we should have another member of the Conservation Commission as an Open Space Committee member added to the Community Preservation Committee, which would have to go through the selectmen anyway, since they're the appointing body.
Well,
I'm sure that-
Larry right now is a committee of one, except for the commission, which can,
Well, maybe you could get the doc back if you start get
well,
get a committee.
there's some other people too, but I think, again, I would just welcome some assistance. Again, if there's one or two commissioners here that are interested, I already, Larry and I sat down for an hour or so in the office and we talked about, you know, he is just interested and doesn't really come from having any background in previously being involved in open space or whatever. But we both kind of decided that probably one of the first things to do was to try and draft a letter of invitation or something, because I've been contacted by one or two people at different times about some of our, either interested in specific properties or interested in the trail work or interested in the cleanup that we did on Pingree Farm, Boxwood Road. So there is some interest out in the community. I think it's just needs a little gathering together. You know, inviting and saying, you know, if you have this interest, we've got some other people that are interested in.
I think the next time, if we have like a get-together that we had in Boxwood Road at Pingree Farms, we should at least get, you know, some sort of reporting, you know, have somebody come from, I don't know, one of the papers or something like that, to at least take some pictures and get that in the mail. You know, get that in the.
Well, they did announce that. Yeah.
They did
so
announce
maybe we
it,
should
yeah.
have sent them a picture or something.
Yeah, that's always doable.
Yeah.
Because, you know, to have something like that and not let the people know,
Right.
is kind of a waste,
The only
even
thing-
though it worked well.
The only thing that gets me nervous about that, because she's involved in the Bay State Trail, and the work I've always done for those people, that involved many, many towns. So many,
Yeah,
many
that is-
meetings, and I just
yeah.
wanna know from her, I'll call her, I'll give her a call this spring, if they, well, how much is gonna be just Rowley?
Yeah.
Cause I don't wanna travel to Topsfield
Yeah.
to go to a meeting, and all they do is talk about something that's completely,
Well, I think,
Nothing to do.
right,
forgive me, but I think the impetus should be on a committee in Raleigh
exactly.
about Raleigh's open space.
Yeah.
And then if any of those folks broaden their interest or wish to then
Hmm.
get involved in the bigger effort of the Bay Circuit Trail,
Yeah,
You know,
that's the whole key to it, because other than that, you're in over your head doing something in
well, you
essence.
don't want to be overloaded, number one. You want to be respectful of everyone's time, but you also want to have a variety of experiences and interests. So not only meeting time, but then trail time, but then just recreation time of getting out and experiencing the open space properties that's been preserved. I mean, I think it's a combination of those three things, which if done appropriately would, you know, attract people's interest. And not necessarily just be considered the drudgery of a meeting. Not that meetings are drudgery. I'm not trying to,
Present company.
yes, present company is screwed.
Yes.
Well, an important aspect of that also is keeping the open space plan up to date.
Yes.
Hmm.
There's already, my son and I went snowshoeing at Ayers Park down towards the
Those
the
were
town.
your footprints.
Those were ours.
You can now go a half mile down there.
Yes, I know.
Oh, then back?
Yeah,
Yep.
you know, we stopped at the fence, well, we went a little bit beyond. but,
Yeah, all that buckthorn is leaned
Yeah.
over. It's all
Yeah,
gone.
it
It's all
was-
gone.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's why I said, you can go a half mile
Oh,
now.
oh, I thought you were talking
You
about the
can
fact
go,
that they
you can
plowed.
go all the way down to the second potential vernal pool.
Oh,
There's a little bit of stuff there, but then basically the road's cleared
neat.
beyond
Well,
that,
I
and
can
you
try
get
that
to
out.
you can get to the baseball field.
yeah, good.
I ran out of oomph.
Hey,
when got to there.
It's easy, it's easily doable. I ran
But
out
it's all
many
open.
times. Cool.
So, and I scaled that on the pictometry, that is about a half mile.
Yeah,
From
it's-
the gate, that's a
Yeah.
half mile into the
In.
Girl Scout property.
Yeah.
And it's basically another half mile to get to Weathersfield Street.
Oh, really?
Yep,
That's all?
that's all. From the gate, so you're
Yeah.
already in
In, yeah, so
to
you're a
the
mile.
cell tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cleared for a half mile there now. That's the
Oh,
same
we'll have to
amount
try
that
that.
I had cleared for walking,
Yeah, yeah.
but the snow bent stuff back over.
Well, that's it, that's why
So that's
we
all
got
gone
stuck
now.
there, cause I sank
Yeah,
going over that,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah, so it's all gone now, it's all opened up for you.
Yeah, cool.
You won't even have to bend over until you get near that
We'll
second
be
vernal
there.
pool.
We'll be there. That's when I found, yes.
Somebody's watching you. At least the snow is soft.
I know it's snowshoes. It's a real pain to get back on.
Isn't it though?
Oh, God.
It can be pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Every time you put your arm down, you sink right up to your shoulder. It's like, I'm stuck here.
You have to wait for the melt. April.
That's all I have.
That's all you got? Okay. Well, very interesting. No enforcement? Nothing? No enforcement? Everybody's behaving themselves?
Yeah.
Very so.
Yeah, you just can't tell that they aren't, right?
Yeah.
Ready? That brings us to the 8:30 item, personnel evaluation of Conservation Agent Brent Baselak. This is a requirement that we do on a yearly basis. We always do it right on time, but this would be the yearly evaluation of our sole employee. I've asked Kurt Turner, Vice Chair, to take the lead on this. So, Kurt?
I thought in looking this over, and it's, from where I sit, and I can't speak for everyone else, and I think that we all need to express our views on this, but Brent's had an outstanding year, I think the best year since he's been here. And at his last performance review, he was rated excellent in all categories. I see no difference. And no reason to make any other changes in that. I think for the sake of the folks at home that it's useful to put this in perspective a little bit by reading from excerpts of the annual report of the Raleigh Conservation Commission for 2014, which will be in the town report for the next town meeting. I believe that's the usual practice. And just take a few pieces out of that, and one is that the responsibilities of the commission is that we administer and enforce the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Rivers Protection Act, the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Town of Raleigh Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. This is not a simple matter. Those are complex subjects. It's expanded into several of these since I've been on the commission. I've been on the commission for over 25 years. Last year we received 54 permit applications and a number of other things that I'd just like to enumerate here. The Conservation Department assisted the Board of Selectmen by reviewing and providing professional input on special permit requests and road opening applications. In addition, the office reviewed 67 building permit requests, at least 8 information requests, 2 conservation restrictions, Bradstreet Farm Conservation Area and the former Girl Scout Camp Conservation Area, and provided the Board of Health with input on 17 soil evaluation site reviews. The Conservation Department provided environmental expertise to the Planning Board in special permit and definitive subdivision project reviews and commented on applications before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, when that says the Conservation Department, that means Mr. Baselak, 99%. In 2014, the Board of Selectmen voted to designate the Conservation Commission to serve as the interim Open Space Committee to update the Raleigh Open Space and Recreation Plan. This was a major effort by Brent above and beyond his normal responsibilities. He also provided staff assistance and support to the Board of Selectmen in the purchase of the approximately 193-acre former Girl Scout property at 390 Weathersfield Street. Again, this was all extra to what his normal responsibilities are. He's called attention tonight to this wonderful trail map up here that he's been instrumental in developing, along with the Merrimack Valley Planning Committee folks, who generously supplied that, I believe, at his constant instigation. And he's gone over these trails and cleared them and helped in them. His wife helps in this sort of stuff. I mean, it just goes on and on. I make a habit of putting into my Brent file the various things that stand out in my mind during the course of the year, positive and negative, that might come to bear at certain points in time. And as you might guess, there's no negatives there. But he has developed into an excellent wordsmith in terms of the documents and the extensive preparation that he helps with regard to this committee, preparing memoranda and keeping us informed. His major time that he spends interacting with people, with inquiries and with detailed support on their applications. He has done clearing around the town along the roadside, in addition to Hunsley Hills. See if there are any other things that jump out at me here off the top of my head.
He helps
Jump in.
stranded commissioners that are lost in snowbanks.
Embedded in snowbanks.
He was helping with the assistance of barred owl boxes. He did some clearing of the snow off the roofs of various buildings on the Girl Scout properties. It's way above and beyond the call of duty. Anyway, you get the gist of all that. I think that he has done an exemplary work all year long and deserves nothing more than an outstanding rating. One of the parts of this form called for looking for areas of improvement, and I think that applies to the Board of Selectmen rather than to Brent. If they could keep some of this extracurricular work off of his shoulders, he'd be able to do a much better job on conservation matters, which is already outstanding. We are a little lagging in minutes, but that was the only thing I could come up with, but you certainly haven't had the time to do that. So anyway, Brent, job well done as far as I'm concerned.
I second that.
I'd just like to particularly call attention to his volunteer efforts for the town. I think, I don't know of many town employees, if any, who so consistently volunteer their own time for the town that employs them. It's not even the town that he lives in. And I think that's extraordinary among town employees. If there's another employee of this town who does that, I'm not aware of it. And it's not just one thing, it's everything. From the clearing of trails to the clearing of snow off town buildings, to getting commissioners out of snowbanks. It's a consistent pattern. Cleaning up garbage at the Hunsley Hills. As Commissioner Turner just said, the examples are numerous. So.
You've set a very high standard for the position. So, my applause to your efforts.
You did.
Yeah. Any other comments? Well, thank you, Brent. That is truly sincere on my part. Another way of looking at it is all of us commissioners would have to work infinitely harder to get this job done if you didn't do such a good job for us. And that would make it difficult to do the job. It wouldn't get done as well. It would make it difficult to attract and keep commissioners because people don't have that kind of time. And the net effect would be an ineffective commission, and instead I think we have a very effective commission.
One more item. Brent stopped by my house the other day and he volunteered to rake my roof. So I declined, but I was very grateful for the offer. But it doesn't stop with the items that you discussed. It goes beyond.
I think his people skills are exceptional, handling difficult people in a very tactful, considerate way.
Glad you brought that up, Judy. I meant to point that out, that since we
He's
often
patient and,
have to issue negative findings with regard to certain property matters, that there are some people who, despite Brent's best efforts, take exception to that and make his job more difficult than ours as well. Fortunately, those people are few and far between. I would like to say that, in addition, I think, Brent, that you have grown this year in terms of your sense of balance with regard to the responsibilities of the job and your approach to all of the stakeholders involved in the wetland-related matters, and that you're showing a good side to the ability to work with applicants and to assist them wherever possible, even if they're sometimes kind of stubborn and out of line. So I would applaud your continuation of that.
Any other comments by commissioners?
What's
I
the first
thought he
cookie?
cooked them until he saw the bag.
Like choosing something. It's supposed to go
he has
into
no
executive
points
session
for his
now.
cookie skills.
I think the procedure, I was trying to remember, and Brent has a hint here in the agenda. I think the procedure is that the oral or verbal evaluation is a public meeting.
Yes.
It is then, we're then expected to go, I guess we're really required to go into executive session.
No, I'm requesting the
Yeah, we are required to go if you're
employee
required.
has the ability to
Correct.
request that the actual preparation of the evaluation form be conducted in executive session to comply with the act or under the authority of any special law, public records law, in connection
General
with
privacy
drafting the
statute.
written evaluation
Right.
document.
All right, and you so request?
I so request.
So in that case, I need a motion to go into executive session for that purpose.
So moved.
You have to
And,
state your name and,
First, I think I need a second.
yes.
And so second,
I second it.
and then we need to pull the, is this right? Need to
You-
give
you-
an individual vote
Each,
from every
yeah,
member.
commissioner states their name and their vote.
Starting with you,
Yea or
Sam.
nay.
Sam Strife, yay.
Kurt Turner, yea?
Doug Watson, yay?
Dave Delmonico, yay.
Judy Keys, yay.
Arthur Page, yay.
Bob Donner,
Okay. All right, and so now we are going to enter into executive session. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Don't be too late.
Aye. All against.
Slowing up there, folks.
Chap has troubles.
Oh.